Ari continues to pursue Nico. Didak chooses a side, and Cruz makes a huge decision. Hello, entertainment enthusiasts. This is Ray, and this is the Fandom Realm. And today I'm going to be reviewing Season 6, Episode 2 of Elite. As always, this is a spoiler review, so just be warned. So, episode number 2 starts out with us getting a look at Nico's parents, who are a little bit worried about what's going on with him. They're worried that a new relationship with Ari might cause him some issues and cause him to backslide. And along with that, this first opening scene is also going to show Ari. Seems like she's drinking. She goes out and she gets into her car. This is something that is just showing us that she could be one of the people that hit Yvonne, but we don't know. Now, as we move into the episode, we are actually going to see the students at school, and guys who were accused of raping Isadora are going to be headed into school. They're going to run into Isadora and her friends, and there's going to be sort of a confrontation in the hallway. They feel like they deserve to be at school. They continue to maintain that they didn't do anything, and so with that, things sort of dissipate there. Now, along with that, we're going to flash to soccer outside, basically at gym class, so we get to a little montage of everyone playing soccer, including Patrick, including Yvonne, including Nico. Nico's sort of going to be the hero. He scores a goal, and the guys are going to be treating him like one of the guys. And while all this is happening, Ari is watching him. Now, with that, we're going to flash to Raul and Sarah, and they are talking on social media. They have seen that someone has posted the video of Patrick and Cruz kissing, and of course, that's something that we saw near the end of the last episode, and Cruz actually was the one responsible for that kiss. So Raul and Sarah are actually talking about whether this actually happened or not. Moving on, we do get a scene between Isadora and Didak, and basically he's telling her that it's just hard for him to believe what she's saying because he has known Yavi for so long, since they were little kids, and that he just doesn't know how he could have been involved in a rape. From there on, we're actually going to cut to a scene where Ari has taken Nico out to a restaurant. It looks like some type of gay bar, drag club type scene. And of course, she assumes it's somewhere he would like. She just doesn't really get it. I'm not really sure. She seems to have been this enlightened person for most of the series that she's been here, but she seems to just be really stupid when it comes to what Nico's going through. While they're at the drag club, we're going to skip to another scene, and this is going to be a very heartfelt scene by Patrick. He knows that Cruz is under a lot of pressure because of that video that got out, and so he's actually going to make a post and put it onto social media saying that Cruz was not the one that instigated the kiss, that it was Patrick, that Patrick was pursuing him because Cruz was famous. And with that, you're going to get a situation. Patrick is also going to end up talking to Yvonne, and they're going to talk about the fact that he was allowing everything to be blamed on him. We're going to cut back to the club, and we're going to see Nico and Ari still there. They're having dinner, they're drinking, they're eating, they're having a nice little conversation. It looks like they're probably going to end up going back to a room somewhere or some type of a hotel, but we're not quite to that yet. Now, we're going to flash forward to Isadora's club, and she is actually going to be watching as her rapists come into the club. And with that, she is standing there watching along with Bilal. Now, of course, one thing that Isadora is going to do at this point that she shouldn't is she goes onto Twitter and she starts seeing some very negative comments. And some of those comments were basically that she should be ashamed and she should basically kill herself. Now, moving on, of course, we're at Club Isadora. She had been talking to Bilal, and they had watched Didak come in with Yavi and the other rapists, and they're sitting down. We're at a scene with the four of them now, and they are sitting down and talking, and Didak is buying them drinks. And they're just shooting the shit. Skip to new scene. This is going to be Ari and Nico. They've gone back to a hotel room. They're going to start some heavy kissing and making out. It looks like they're going to try to hook up, and things are going to go wrong because Ari just can't get over this idea that he is trans, and I think it's a little bit in his mind too. And so she's wanting something to drink. They're in bed. He's basically in his underwear. She's in her underwear, and she hesitates taking his underwear off, and that's going to basically stop the whole process. He sort of sets up and says that she can't stand the thought of what he might look like and tells her to take his underwear off, and she refuses. And so that's basically going to end that for those two this evening. But then we're going to cut into a scene with our best buds, Yavi and Didak. And Didak is discussing Isadora with Yavi. They're going to talk. Of course, Yavi is drunk. He may be a little high too. And Yavi is going to basically let Didak sort of walk him through what happened that night when Isadora got raped. And so he basically admits to Didak that Isadora was drunk and passed out, and this confirms to Didak that she was raped. We're going to move on to the next scene, and Didak gets Isadora's attention. Also, Sarah is nearby, so he grabs her and says, "Hey, come on over. You need to hear this because what you have said." And he plays the tape of him and Yavi, and he basically made a tape of Yavi admitting that they raped Isadora. And he basically tells her that he can make a copy, he can send a copy, whatever he needs to do so that she has that information. And then he apologizes to her and tells her that he's sorry he didn't believe her and that it was just Javi and they've been friends forever and he just couldn't take her word over his at the time. Now, Sarah is going to make a big decision here, and we follow her home, and she's going to be meeting up at home with Raul, and she's going to have been moved by what happened earlier with Isadora. And if you remember, she actually was in a situation where she posted some very negative things about Isadora. So she's going to make a post basically going back on all that and saying that Sarah was wrong about what she had said about Isadora. And so that's going to be posted to her social media. And then we're going to find out that basically overnight, she lost about 1.5 million followers because of what she posted. Raul's going to have a huge fit, and we don't get to see it, but it sounds like he was probably hitting her. I think it's pretty obvious that their storyline is one for domestic abuse at this point. Now we're going to skip back to the high school, and Yvonne and Patrick are walking in, and Patrick asks Yvonne if he was responsible for something. Yvonne doesn't really have any idea what he's talking about. And Patrick plays an interview that the press was doing with Cruz, and in it, Cruz admits to the press that actually the kiss with Patrick was his fault, and he's a football player, and he is gay. And that is how the episode is going to wrap. Now, I want to just take a couple minutes and go through just a couple of thoughts and reactions to this episode. When I look at this episode and the first two episodes overall, I really like what they're doing with this trans character. They are sort of looking at this from their point of view and how they're moving into a new relationship and showing the parents being concerned about what's going on. We do get to see Nico go out and compete with the other guys now. They seem to be very comfortable with him. They were patting him on the back for scoring the goal, and so he's very comfortable in that instance. But then he goes out with Ari, who, like I said, I don't know what her problem is. She seems to be the biggest transphobe in the world right now, and so, I mean, we're just going to have to see where this ends up going. But I like the way they have introduced this character. I think the actor that is playing Nico is doing an excellent job so far. And while they're writing this character and they're pulling this character off, I think the important thing to remember here is that there's a lot going on in Nico's head as well. So while Ari's being completely stupid, Nico is, he's got certain things going through his head that's not helping the situation either. Second big thing I wanted to talk about on this episode was just this idea of Isadora's rape. Again, a very big topic for the show to talk about. Of course, so far you basically, throughout Elite, you've had lots of sex and nudity and murder. And we haven't talked about some big issues like rape. And so with that, I think they are doing an okay job of portraying what is going on so far. I think one of the things that they have sort of hit on the head, and it's a little uncomfortable when you look at it, is Didak's response. And it's not necessarily that he wants to not believe Isadora to start with. It's that he's known Yavi for so much longer and doesn't think he can do that. And I like how they're doing this, because with all the questions out in society today all over the world about, do you just take what the woman says to be the truth? And it's sort of a hard decision, because in lots of instances, people know the potential rapists, the assaulters, more than they know the person who was assaulted. And it can be hard to move past that idea of believing the person who was assaulted. And I'm not necessarily saying that's right. I'm just saying I think that's part of the issue we have when we talk about this subject. And you'll hear people talk about, well, I don't believe what they said. Lots of times that's because they don't know the person who's the accuser, but they know who's being accused. And, if you've been playing with somebody since you were in diapers, you're probably going to trust them more. And so I think they're doing a good job with this. Last thing, of course, is with this whole Patrick and Cruz relationship and what happened at the end of episode 1. I thought it was very chivalrous that Patrick tried to get on social media and take the blame for it. And yes, it seems to me he was doing that to try to get Yvonne to come back. And it pretty much seems to have worked. But then, I haven't really liked Cruz so far. But Cruz tells Yvonne, no, he was the one that initiated everything. And then I like that they went ahead and had Cruz do the coming out scene at the end of the episode. He stood up and took responsibility for it. And it's really tough in that situation. He knows football players and sort of how fans tend to react when they're out football players. And so, or he knows how they can act around some out football players. And so that's something that I'm going to be very interested to see what is going to happen. Now, for this episode of Elite, of course, this is season 6, episode 2. I'm going to give this episode a B. I thought it was a good episode. Nothing that I would really subtract off of it for. I like where the storylines are going, and so I hope they continue. With that, I hope you've enjoyed this review of Elite Season 6, Episode 2. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment below. And I'll see you next time on the Fandom Realm.